circle of life. Now we're getting to this one. We'll talk about cremation versus burial, right? And it's an important concept because this trend. I mean, I understand the economics of burial versus the economics of cremation. Cremation's far cheaper, far cheaper, and it's also, we don't have the land to bury our loved ones. Apart from that, people steal bodies of loved ones, and they do as ningi with those bodies of the loved ones. So I understand where people are coming from with the cremation. However, we are of the soil, and to the soil we must return. For even in death, that vessel must still be respected. Let me explain why. Let me explain so that everyone understands. I'm not sure about other cultures, but I'm going to use the Zulu culture as an example. When we are born, guys, the first piece of life, inkabi, that connects us to umawetu, right? So, inkabi ngane, right? The belly button connects you to your mother, right? Umawak. So your first connection, yomsam, is your belly button. Your first piece of life or indicator of life is inkabi yakho, belly button. When that belly button falls, Tina Amazulus, we bury that belly button isbaya. We take it to the kraal and we bury it isbaya on the homestead, at the homestead. That soil where my first piece of life is buried is the very same soil where my ancestors' bodies were also buried and where my body will also be buried. So, because the first piece of life of me was in that soil, right? When I pass, my vessel must be reunited with Inkabiyam, right? I'm going to try my best. When they ask you about Inkabiyaki, right? When they ask you, where is your belly button, right? Those who know, those about Zulu, where was your belly button buried? That is the real. When someone says to you, there's people that say, where is home? And then there's people who say, where was your belly button buried? Because that is where home is. So your first piece of life, right? You must be reunited with it, and you must be placed in the very same soil where your first piece of life was, and where your other ancestors, in the very same soil that your other ancestors, where their belly button was as well, and where their bodies were as well. Now, in the event you decide to burn the body instead, there is imbalance. Imbalance. In other words, you have destroyed the vessel, right? And because you have destroyed the vessel and you did not reunite it with the soil from which it came, you did not unite it with that belly button, that inkab. Inkab is very important. Leon inkab is key. You need to put it in the very same soil that Leon Kabi came from. Because by reuniting it with Leon Kabi, you close the circle of life. And Loa Muntu can peacefully move on to the afterlife. So even in death, bawethu, hlonipha umzimba womuntu. Hlonipha leyo nyama. Respect the vessel. Do not, and I will always say it, especially Black people, do not cremate. Reunited with the same soil where Inkabi was buried. Reunited with the same soil where the other ancestors were also buried. Because manje usushisa umzimba, you are destroying that energy, and that energy needs to be returned to the soil. Do not destroy that energy. It must be returned to the soil from which it came. Hence the saying, son of the soil. I hope that makes sense. If there's any questions,